My name is Rashid Farouk, and on October 19th, 2021, my life and everything I believed was completely turned upside down. I was raised in a devout Muslim family in Dearborn, Michigan, where faith wasn't just a part of life, it was life. From the time I was a child, I lived and breathed Islam. I prayed 5 times a day, memorized large portions of the Quran, and studied the Hadith with discipline. My identity, my morality, and my purpose all came from being a good Muslim. I had always taken pride in my dedication to the faith. I studied comparative religion in college, and while I found Christianity interesting, I believed it was misguided. The idea that God would take human form and die on a cross, it sounded blasphemous to me. I thought Christians had it easy, talking about grace and forgiveness as if salvation didn't require effort or discipline. I believed my path was the righteous one, built on works, structure, and obedience to Allah's commands. But late at night, when the world was quiet and the weight of my own soul felt heavier, doubts would creep in. I'd wonder if I'd done enough, if my good deeds could ever truly outweigh the bad. The day of judgment loomed in the back of my mind, and no matter how much I prayed or fasted, I couldn't shake the fear that I'd come up short. Still, I kept going, burying the uncertainty with more prayer, more devotion, more study. I had no idea that my life was about to change in a way I never saw coming. It happened while I was visiting my cousin Hamza in Toledo, Ohio. That morning was ordinary. I prayed far before sunrise, read from the Quran, and talked theology with Hamza over breakfast. But later that afternoon, I started to feel a strange tightness in my chest. First, I thought it was gas or maybe heartburn. I brushed it off. But by the time the sun went down, the pain was unbearable, sharp, heavy, and radiating through my arms. Hamza rushed me to the ER, and within an hour, I was lying on a hospital bed, surrounded by nurses and doctors moving fast, their faces tense. I was having a major heart attack. Everything around me felt like it was spinning. The beeping of machines, the hum of voices, the cold sting of the 4. It all started to blur. As I struggled to breathe, fear wrapped itself around me like a vice. I wasn't ready to die. I hadn't completed everything I wanted to do in this life, and more importantly, I wasn't sure if I had done enough to please Allah. My lips began to quietly repeat the Shahada over and over, hoping those words would be my bridge into the afterlife. But then, something happened that I can't explain with logic. The pain in my chest disappeared. The voices of the doctors faded into silence. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did, but I wasn't in the hospital bed anymore. I was above it, looking down at my body. I could see the doctors working frantically, my cousin in the corner crying into his hands, but I felt calm. I wasn't scared. I wasn't in pain. I was just watching, like I was disconnected from it all. Then I noticed something else, a light. It wasn't like the light in the hospital. This light didn't come from the ceiling or the machines. It came from somewhere else. At first, it was distant, like a soft glow in the background, but it grew brighter and closer with every passing second. I felt it before I saw it fully. It was warm, not physically, but inside. It made me feel like everything that had ever been broken in me was suddenly okay. I didn't hear a voice, but I knew I was being called into it. I tried to resist. My mind was screaming that this wasn't real, that I wasn't supposed to be going into some strange light. I was Muslim. I knew what the afterlife was supposed to look like. But no matter how hard I tried to hold back, I was being gently pulled forward. Not forced, but invited. And the closer I got, the more peaceful I felt. Like I was being drawn towards something pure, something holy, something I never expected. When I finally stepped into the light, everything around me changed. It wasn't like walking into a room. It was like stepping into another existence altogether. The colors were brighter than anything I'd ever seen. The air, if you could call it that, felt alive. I wasn't walking, but I was moving, floating maybe. There was no fear, no pain, just this overwhelming sense that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But I still didn't know why I was there or what was happening. That's when I saw him, a figure standing in the light. At first, I couldn't make out his face because the brightness around him was so intense. But as he stepped forward, I felt something I'd never felt before. It was like the essence of love itself wrapped around me. It went straight to the core of who I was, like he could see everything in me. My sins, my fears, my doubts, and still there was no judgment, just love. I didn't understand it, but I also couldn't deny it. He looked at me, and it was like he was looking through me. I didn't feel scared. I felt known. And then he spoke. Not loudly, not even with his mouth really. It was like the words were placed directly into my soul. "Rashid," he said, "I've been waiting for you." I was stunned. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And finally, I managed to whisper, "Who are you?" Even before he answered, I somehow already knew. "I am Jesus." The moment he said his name, my entire body or soul or whatever I was in reacted. I wanted to back away. My mind screamed, this can't be. I had spent my whole life believing Jesus was a prophet, respected, yes, but just a man. Not divine, not the Son of God, not this, not what I was seeing. I remember shaking my head, saying, "That's not possible. You're not supposed to be here. Not like this." But Jesus didn't argue. He didn't correct me with anger. He just stood there, patient, peaceful, and so incredibly kind. Then he said something that shook me more than anything else. "You've been searching your whole life, Rashid. Even when you thought you had all the answers, your heart was still asking questions." I broke down. Right there in front of him, I wept. Because he was right. I had been searching. I had buried the doubts for years, pretended they didn't exist, but deep down, I was never fully sure if I was enough. If I had done enough, prayed enough, been good enough. And now, in the presence of Jesus, it all came pouring out. He didn't shame me. He didn't scold me. He just said, "Let me show you." And then, almost like a movie playing around us, I saw scenes from his life, real, vivid, and full of meaning. I saw him healing a blind man, touching a leper, feeding people who had nothing. And then I saw something I never thought I'd witness with my own eyes. I saw the crucifixion. I saw the nails, the blood, the agony on his face. But what hit me the hardest wasn't the pain. It was the love. Even while he suffered, he radiated love like I had never imagined. I asked him, "Why would you do that? Why would you go through all that pain?" And his answer was simple, but it crushed me in the best way. "Because I love you," he said. "I did it for you." I'd never heard anything like that before. In Islam, God is merciful, but love like this, personal, sacrificial love, that was new to me. And for the first time in my life, I realized that maybe I didn't need to earn God's approval. Maybe it had already been given through him. Then the scene shifted, and I saw something even more overwhelming. I saw heaven, not as some vague dream or floating cloud. It was real, beautiful in a way I can't explain. There was light everywhere, peace, joy, people laughing, embracing, whole. Jesus looked at me and said, "This is what I've prepared for those who believe." And I believed him. I didn't know how to explain it, but I believed him. My heart couldn't deny what my soul had seen. Just as I was beginning to take in the beauty of it all, the peace, the overwhelming sense of being home, Jesus turned to me with a more serious look in his eyes. "There's something else you need to see," he said. And suddenly, everything around us changed. The light dimmed, The air felt heavy. I was no longer in that beautiful place. I was somewhere else entirely. The warmth was gone. In its place was a coldness I can't even describe. It wasn't just the temperature, it was emptiness. A sorrow that clung to me like smoke. I heard voices, cries really, desperate, broken cries from people I couldn't see clearly. Faces in the shadows, twisted with pain, regret, and hopelessness. I wanted to look away. I didn't want to see this. Where are we? I asked. Jesus answered quietly, "This is separation. This is what it means to reject God's love." It wasn't fire and flames like I'd imagined. It was worse. It was the absence of everything good. No peace, no light, just a longing that would never be filled. I couldn't stop crying. Not just because of what I saw, but because I understood. I had been so sure that my works would save me, that my effort, my devotion, my fasting, my prayers would be enough. But here, in this place, I realized that without knowing Jesus, without accepting what he had done for me, all of that wasn't enough. Jesus wasn't showing me this to scare me. He was showing me because he loved me. He didn't want me to end up there. He wanted me to understand what was truly at stake. Then he looked at me again and said, "Rashid, you have a choice. I've given my life for you. All I ask is that you believe, not in religion, not in rituals, in me. Will you accept my gift?" And I said yes. Through tears, I said yes, because I knew in that moment, more than anything else in my life, that he was the truth. Not just a prophet, not just a teacher. He was the way, the truth, and the life. As soon as I said yes, the light returned. It wrapped around me like a warm blanket, like a father hugging his lost son who had finally come home. I felt something I had never truly felt before, freedom. Not the kind the world offers, but a freedom in my soul. The pressure to be perfect, the fear of falling short, the guilt I carried for years, it all lifted. I was no longer trying to earn God's love. I was receiving it, fully, freely, and undeservedly. That's when Jesus looked at me and said, "Your time here isn't over. You must go back. There are people who need to hear what I've shown you." I didn't want to leave. I begged him to let me stay. "Please," I said. "I don't want to go back." But he just smiled and gently said, "You were brought here for a reason. Now go and tell them. You won't be alone. I'll be with you." And then it was like everything started fading. The light, the warmth, the peace. And the next thing I knew, I was back in my hospital bed. Alarms were going off. Nurses were shouting. My cousin Hamza was crying at my bedside. And I was alive. They said I had flatlined for almost 2 minutes. The doctors called it a miracle. They couldn't explain how I came back, or why my heart suddenly stabilized after failing so quickly. But I knew why. I knew exactly what happened. I had been somewhere they couldn't reach. I had met the one they didn't understand. And now, I had a purpose that went far beyond survival. I had been given another chance, not just at life, but at truth. The days that followed were the most confusing and emotional of my life. Physically, I was healing, but spiritually, I was wrestling with everything I had ever believed. I laid in that hospital bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same questions over and over. Was it real? Did I really see him? How do I even begin to explain this to anyone, especially my family? I knew what Islam taught about Jesus. I knew what my parents believed, what my community believed, but I couldn't deny what I had seen. No part of it felt like a dream. It was more real than anything I'd ever experienced in this world. When I got home, I couldn't keep it inside any longer. I told my cousin Hamza first, the one who took me to the hospital. He just stared at me, shocked. "You saw Jesus?" he asked, not angry, but confused. I nodded and said, Yes, and he wasn't just a prophet. Hamza, he's everything. I could tell he didn't know what to say. And honestly, I didn't expect him to believe me right away. I just needed him to hear it. And I needed to say it out loud to stop hiding from it. Eventually, I told my parents. That was one of the hardest moments of my life. My father thought I was joking at first. My mother cried. "We raised you in the truth," she said. "How can you say these things?" I tried to explain gently that I wasn't rejecting them or my upbringing. I was just telling them what I saw, what I felt, that Jesus didn't come to attack my faith. He came to fulfill what had always been missing in my heart. But the room fell into silence, and I knew from that moment on, things would never be the same. Some of my family won't talk to me anymore. Some think I've been brainwashed. Others just avoid the topic altogether. But I made a promise to Jesus in that place of light. I told him I would share the truth. And even if I lose everything else in this world, I know I've found something far greater. I found him, and that changes everything. In the weeks after I got out of the hospital, I started reading the Bible for the first time in my life. I remember feeling nervous just holding it, like I was doing something wrong. But the more I read, the more it felt like the pages were reading me. It was like everything Jesus showed me was already written there, word for word. The message of grace, of forgiveness, of a God who comes to us instead of demanding we reach him first. It all made sense now. It wasn't about religion. It was about relationship, about love that I didn't have to earn. I began reaching out to others who had stories like mine, former Muslims who had encountered Jesus. Some of them had dreams, others had visions, and some had near-death experiences like I did. For the first time, I didn't feel so alone. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't lost. I was found, and I had a purpose now, to share my story with anyone who would listen. Not to debate, not to convince, but simply to tell the truth about what I saw and who I met on the other side. Now, every time I tell my story, I see something change in people's eyes. Some of them start to cry. Some sit in silence, not sure what to say. And some ask the same question I once did. What if it's true? And to them I say, don't take my word for it. Seek him for yourself. Ask Jesus to reveal himself to you. He will. He's not hiding. He's waiting, just like he waited for me. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I didn't share this to go viral or gain attention. I shared this because someone out there, maybe you, is searching like I was. If you've ever wondered if there's more to life than religion, more to God than rules and fear, I want you to know that there is. His name is Jesus, and he's real. He's alive, and he loves you more than you could ever imagine. Before you go, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be sharing more testimonies like mine, stories of people who've had life-changing encounters with the living God. And if you have questions, or if you just need prayer, leave a comment below. You're not alone in this. We're in it together, and Jesus is closer than you think.